Hello, everybody. Welcome to Abnormal.
Hello, everybody.
How you doing, Scott?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Surviving.
I hear you. After last night, yes.
Yeah, last night got pretty intense.
Yeah.
That was the first time in a long time that I thought that I may have to do something.
Yeah. That growl at the last, that was a crazy growl.
Yeah, it's still bothering Sarah. She's still a little shook up over that.
Yeah.
I think what happened is I pushed it too much and I pushed it up against that water and it didn't have anywhere else to go.
Right. So it was trapped.
Yeah, I don't think it was going to go in the water. I think that was because it's got a lot cooler.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it would have rather went through us than had to go to the water.
It might have been knocked in the water had you have to do what you needed to do.
Yeah, because I was prepared. I was very prepared.
Right.
That was the first time I've ever thought I was going to have to use it.
Yeah.
It got pretty intense. Waiting on Sarah to come backstage, guys. We got a special guest tonight. I've been excited to have. We have Amanda the Bigfoot Lady. It's going to be quite an experience interviewing her. I think she works at a museum, and I believe she's had some encounters herself and a lot of stories. And I think we're just going to sit back and just let her have the stage tonight, and just let her go at it. No, we wouldn't do that to her.
We'll let her do it all.
Yeah, I might as well, man. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing. Before the show just now, the computer's running great all week until you go to do something, and everything just decides, hey, I'm not going to work tonight.
Right.
I guess we'll throw Sarah in when she gets here. She's going to make her usual late appearance. I think she does it for the attention. I think that's what she's doing.
I don't know. She might have to have Logan. She might have to have Logan walk her across the yard if she's scared.
Yeah. I tell you what, that last night scared her pretty good.
Yeah, I guarantee you.
The only announcements I got tonight, guys, is I just want to keep Patricia Harrington in your prayers. As far as I know, she's having a rough time right now, so we want to keep her in our prayers.
Amen.
Check out our merchandise store, guys. We have it up and running now. We now have some Wide Open Adventure stuff on there, and we have a Wide Open Adventure Christmas ornament on there now. I want to thank the mods for showing up tonight. Scott for being here tonight.
No problem.
And everybody, just please try to keep the chat respectful, and we'll go ahead and we'll bring Amanda on the show. So everybody, here's Amanda.
Hello, Amanda.
How are you?
I'm good. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. We do things pretty laid back here. We're just
That's
pretty
awesome.
laid back. We just kind of sit around and we gossip. And Scott, he talks about Bone Tomahawk from time to time. I got him to finally watch that. So
that's something I'm not familiar with. So maybe you can fill me in. If not, maybe
don't watch it.
10-4. Gotcha.
It's a Western, kind of a Western horror. It's about a Indian tribe that all the other tribes were afraid of, and they had kidnapped people, and they go and try to save the people. So they're
gotcha.
Pretty violent tribe. Gotcha.
Yeah, horror movies aren't exactly my genre anyway, so I'll pass.
Yeah.
we never know what we're going to watch. So you work at a museum, right?
I do, yes. I actually have the great privilege of working for Expedition Bigfoot, the Sasquatch Museum, owned by David McCara in Blue Ridge, Georgia, here in the North Georgia mountains where I'm from.
That is awesome.
So how long have you been there?
So I've been there twice, off and on. So in total, I've been there 3 years.
That's cool. You probably Oh
my God, I know her.
Uh-oh.
Go back, Scott.
See? You never know.
Exactly. It's all good.
It won't let me come back on. I can't see real good at the phone. I know who you are now. Okay. I've watched you on all the episodes.
I've been on a couple of podcast interviews within the last year, especially since I've come out as the Bigfoot Lady on social media. So I've told other people, but since your audience isn't familiar with me or may not be, anyway, I came out as Amanda the Bigfoot Lady on social media, separate from, of course, my personal stuff. The nickname was given to me by my husband because I work there at the museum. He's always teasing people, say, "Yeah, you need to go up there and talk to my wife. She's the Bigfoot Lady. Go talk to her."
Right.
So I just stuck with the name, and I've been running with it, and it works. I like it.
Yeah, you've done a lot with Small Town Monsters, right?
I have not actually. I enjoy small town monsters. Their
Oh, okay.
productions and stuff have been fabulous.
Okay.
They do great investigative
Yeah.
work on top of all the actual documentaries they put out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They're definitely awesome.
So do y'all have a lot of like stuff you found at the museum? Is there like a lot of, do you have like casts and stuff like that? Is that what you have?
Yes, yeah. David has procured quite a lot of different casts. Some of them are originals. Some of them are replicas. They have the claim to fame at the museum of it being the largest Bigfoot museum by square footage alone, and the largest public cast collection open in the United States.
Wow.
So they've
wow.
got casts even from Washington, from Florida, here in Georgia. They have, of course, the Patty footprint, the Cripplefoot footprint, some of Paul Freeman's hand cast, knuckle cast. And then, of course, being a Georgia native, you got to have the Elkins Creek cast in there, which I think is one of my favorite things in there because it's being from Georgia.
Yeah.
Right. So you've had a personal encounter with a Bigfoot?
I have. I had a personal encounter with one where I know it was Bigfoot. I did not actually see it, and I'll go into more detail as I share the story. But I've had other paranormal and supernatural type experiences in my life, and I saw another creature that I don't really know what it was, whether it was Bigfoot or not. That only the good Lord above knows what that was. And
Right.
so yeah, I attribute it to probably being Bigfoot, just as I've shared the story more and other people are sharing different encounters and experiences, and those little tiny details that people share in other experiences kind of correlate with some of the stuff that I've experienced, and that's just kind of why so I claim that I have two Bigfoot experiences on top of the numerous other paranormal and supernatural experiences I've had in my life growing up here in North Georgia. My
So
family. Sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. There's a delay. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. So my family is from this area. They're some of the original settlers here in the North Georgia mountains, and then on top of Native American ancestry that I have. So my mom and her mom and all the women in my family on that side have all had I don't want to say like supernatural abilities or whatever, but we had the gift of foresight, the gift of sight, as I said, where like whenever I was a child, I was absolutely plagued with nightmares, and my mom would have to put a Bible under my pillow so where I would stop seeing the boogeyman and other things at night, ghosts and things. And in all of that, I've seen what might as well have been a dinosaur. It was like a pterodactyl type animal. I've seen a direwolf type creature animal, and then I've had the two Bigfoot experiences on top of everything else. I've seen angels, I've seen demons, I've seen it all. And it's my friend, especially, shout out to my bestie, Ashley, who's probably watching this. She is telling me all the time as I'm sharing all these stories and experiences that I've had. It's like, oh, yeah, and about that, and about that. She's like, girl, you really need to write all this down, because the more I keep listing, the more I start realizing, like, oh crap, I have had that many experiences in my life. Dang, I've just kind of always just kind of filed it in the back of my head and never really thought too much about it until I start talking to more people and realize that, yeah, maybe I have had a lot of experiences in my life.
That's just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
What was your first encounter? Was it supernatural or was it what you would call cryptid? Which one did you have first?
Of just anything in general, not necessarily just Bigfoot.
Yeah, how did it like start with something and then evolve to the other, or did it kind of all happen at once?
It may have evolved from supernatural and paranormal into cryptid, because my cryptid experiences didn't happen until I was in my teen years. But the ghosts, angels, and demons and stuff like that, I've been seeing since I was a small child.
That makes a lot of sense, because whenever I was small, you were talking about seeing those things, and we lived in a house. I've told Scott and him about that. In a particular bedroom that I was in, there was things in the bedroom, and of course, I was told, when I was young, it was school time the next day, so get your butt back to bed. There ain't nothing in there.
Yeah, depending on who was home, whether it was mom or dad, depending on how that went. I understand that completely.
Right. So, your first Bigfoot encounter.
Mm-hmm. So my first
How did that
Bigfoot
happen?
encounter. Yeah. So I like to lay out the story in pretense a little bit, just because that kind of goes along with it. As I mentioned, my family and their history here. So we were with my father. I was 15 years old, and it would have been in the late summer, early fall of 2001. And it was up here in the North Georgia mountains. And we were helping my brother, my brother and I and our cousin was helping my father gather up firewood, because that was the only type of heat that we had. So that was what we did on our days off, is we hauled firewood. And we were on the family property. Then that's one of the pieces of property that's been in the family since the early 1800s. And as we were working with our dad, he gave us a break and let us teens take a break from there so they could go over there and drink beer, whatever it was that they did. And so my uncle had just remarried, so our cousin was new to the family. And on the property there was this huge oak tree that over generations people had been carving their name on it, or initials on this tree. And so since our new cousin had just came into the family, my brother and I, Michael, we said, hey, we should take Kelsey over here to the carving tree and let her put her name on the tree, since she's part of the family now. So we go across from where we were cutting wood and go all the way across the hay field, which is probably half mile or so through this large hay field. And I mention that because the hay was about ready to be cut, so it was really, really tall. And so we get over into the tree line, and it's right next to this creek. And then there's this giant tree, and this tree is growing up next to this big outcrop of like a boulder or rock. Down here in Appalachia, you see those quite a lot, the glacial formations. And anyway, that tree is growing up next to that rock. And I paint that picture out because of where my brother, my cousin, and where I were standing. My brother, my cousin, we'd been there for a few minutes, and they were down on the underside of the rock, and I was up on top of the rock, up next to the tree, and I had found where our names had been there previously, and I don't know if I was carving my name into it deeper or something to that effect. But my brother was down below me, and so he was right next to the creek, and then the woods and the mountainside went up behind me. So as I'm up there on top of the rock, my brother suddenly goes, Amanda, we need to go. And I was like, no, we'll go in a minute. I'm almost done. He's like, no, we need to go like right now. And he grabs my cousin and he takes off running. And I'm like, oh crap, if they're running, I don't know what's happening. I better get to running too. And again, like many other stories, all of this happened within a few seconds of itself. So I hop down off the rock, run around. I'm trying to run and catch up to my brother and my cousin, and I get right to the tree line, to the hayfield, and whatever they had seen let off the most god-awful roar, growl, scream that you want to call it. It was so loud that I have a picture in my mind burned of where I grabbed my ears, tried to catch myself from falling on the ground. I don't remember if I fell onto the ground or not, but I do remember nearly going to my knees. And as I was looking up from that, I see my brother and my cousin running, and they're running through the field of the hay, and all the birds in that field are going up out of the field as I'm catching my feet. And I catch my feet, and I do end up catching up to them. And I asked my brother, I'm like, what is that? What is happening? And he's like, I think it's Bigfoot. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me right now?
Right.
So we catch up to my dad and my uncle, and they see, us kids are, all flustered and, what's going on. And my brother tells him what he saw. And my dad and my uncle, they just kind of look at each other and laugh and look back at us. It's like, oh, you kids just ran into the booger, didn't you? Like, it's no big deal. So I tell that because that same evening we had went, and after I'm sorry, I'm stuttering this evening. So we went to my grandmother who grew up on that property, and we had always heard stories of a booger being on that property. And in some areas, booger is kind of more for Bigfoot. For my family, anyways, it was for anything that kind of went bump in the night. So we had always assumed that it was a ghost that was on that property, that my great uncle was always so scared of and would never go back out there. So when we told my grandma about it, my Nana, she said, oh yeah, it's that booger that your Uncle Kerm ran into. That's exactly what he said he saw. Again, like it was just no big deal. So it was like, well, okay, y'all could have warned us a little bit before that. And so yeah, I never saw. Go ahead.
What was it always on that property? Do you know, or did it arrive at a certain point?
Having talked to my brother later on here within the last year or so, I don't know. I don't know if it was always on that property, or if this was another one, depending on which theory you're going with, whether it's, a flesh and blood that's been there, 30, 40, 50 years, or if it's, been there thousands of years or whatever. I don't know. But when my Uncle Kerm, my great Uncle Kerm, saw it, that probably would have been in, I don't know, the 40s or 50s, just by how old he was whenever I was little. Because that was my grandmother's uncle. And so yeah, this was in 2001 when this happened. So I want to say that yes and no. The reason I say that is because come to find out here later through David, which of course happened during the time whenever I wasn't working at the museum after I had left for a little while, apparently some other people on that same road are experiencing Bigfoot activity. And of course, sadly, that whole area has been sold and bought out, and there's all kinds of new homes and subdivisions and stuff there now, sadly. So I can't go there and look at the property or investigate where all that used to be or anything. So that kind of stinks. But my brother described the creature as exactly like your atypical Bigfoot. As far as like body structure and everything, it was about 50 to 100 feet or yards behind me. I'm sorry, I am terrible with distance directions unless I am physically looking at something. I'm like, yeah, it's been down there next to that tree. Anyway, he said it was up behind me. So whenever he was standing down below, he was looking up and he would be me, and it was up behind me, and it was behind the kind of up arm behind a tree, standing out looking, so you could see the arm holding up onto the tree, but the rest of the body was there. And he described it standing as in like perfect posture, like, you're standing at attention, kind of perfect posture. And it was orangish red in color, kind of like orangutangish color. And the other thing that he really remembers about it, and I didn't find this out until later, is that it had the red glowing eyes. And that was one of the things that scared him so bad, besides, this giant monster standing there looking at us, was that he just got this awful, awful feeling as soon as he saw it, like, we are in trouble if we don't leave right now.
Wow.
And so, yeah, part of me is really, people ask me all the time, like, well, why did you want to see it? I'm like, the deep curiosity part of my mind always kind of says
Yeah.
yes. But then another part of me, 100% is like, yeah, I'm actually kind of glad I didn't see that or haven't seen that because, no, thank you.
There was times that I saw things that I wish, even when I was little. I don't know if you've heard my encounters at my granny's and everything, but my mom and
Unfortunately,
them,
I haven't. No.
yeah, my mom and them were a family of eight,
Okay.
8 kids, and they stayed home with my granny. And then my grandpa was a logger, and he was always out of town.
Okay.
My oldest uncle decided to go spook hunting one night. Something jumped on the car, ran off the car. He drove home, to make it fast, and it started happening from that point forward. It's like it followed him back to the property. But there was things that would happen even now with me growing up. I wouldn't even thought of then, but we grew up and went through it also at my granny's, and they always thought that it was probably more after my mom was always their thought, because it was always worse when mom was there.
Yeah.
They don't know why. The only thing we could ever figure is my mom was the only one that accidentally ran up on it and was pretty much face to face with it. And she said it didn't look like a typical Bigfoot. She says it looked more like a werewolf.
Okay.
And it scared her to death.
I can't even imagine. Yeah, I've heard way too many stories of people who have run into dogman or the more canine or muzzled type cryptids out there, and yeah, no thank you. I have a family member who has had a dogman experience, and yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Right.
It's weird because a lot of times, even whenever it would happen, even to me, I think Scott was watching the live I was actually on, or the video. I think it was a video maybe. I had my nephew and my son with me. The lake down here, I live right on the lake.
Okay.
The lake had dried up, and they like to go do, like, we call it treasures. We go find treasures.
Yeah, yeah.
So we would go get like seashells. They call it seashells or mussel shells, but we go down there and it was an old town that's now flooded. So I mean, you can find the old opium bottles, the wagon wheels, the horseshoes. We found old money. So we go down there and we were messing around, and it was getting evening time, and we're walking back, and there's a tree line about 200 yards to the side of us, but we're out where the lake was at, where it dried up, walking back toward the truck. And man, they start going crazy. They're like, Mike, 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 Mike. And they're about to pull my arm off. And I'm like, what? And I turn around and they're like, coyotes, coyotes, coyotes. There's a pack of coyotes over in the woods. And I'm like, they're not going to hurt you. Well, it wasn't long, was it, Scott? Probably 5 minutes. I was walking, if that. And the kids really started panicking. And they're like, look, 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 look. And when I looked, these coyotes were standing on their hind legs.
Oh, snap.
And, one of them had climbed a tree. There's, I forget what they're called, locust trees down there, and they got big thorns on them. One of them had climbed that tree and was shaking it. I mean, really shaking it. And the kids were terrified. I had my pistol with me that day, and I told them, I said, let's just get to the truck. So we're going to cross this opening, and they start howling at us. They start making their little, whoops at us. But they didn't do nothing. They followed us, paralleled us. They stayed in the trees, but they never came out toward us. And we got in the truck and left. But yeah, that was pretty wild.
Yeah, that was.
That is pretty wild. Now, did it stay the same size as a regular coyote would have been like when they stood up on their hind legs?
Yeah. There wasn't nothing huge or anything like that. It was just like they had went from all fours to standing up.
That's interesting. Terrifying, but interesting.
Right.
It makes you leave a little faster than you go in. I was ready to get out. I was ready to get out of there.
Right.
So, do you have anything where you had your encounters and stuff I know you said supernatural and stuff, but have you had anything happen to you, like say in the sky or anything over the areas that this happened to you in?
Oh man.
Um, kind of. If you count the pterodactyl dinosaur thing that I saw, I know it's weird. Out of all the things that have happened to me and that I've seen, the one thing I've always wanted to kind of see, just to add it, is a UFO, and I haven't seen anything like that yet. Even though I've been in a lot of places where there's not a lot of light pollution, I'm always looking up at the stars and stuff, and then I'm like, oh, is that? It's probably just an airplane, or oh, that's a shooting star, or something. It's you know
Right.
not enough to say, hey, 100% that's what it was, or like I haven't seen any like Dementors or something like that flying around. Even
Didn't pick you
though,
up and take you off, right?
right. Even though working at the museum, I have taken a report of a Mothman type being here in the North Georgia mountains. So that was a pretty interesting story to hear. So there's stuff out there, above the earth, on the earth, under the earth. Stuff's out there.
You're right.
I had never seen anything really in the sky. My whole life, I had never seen anything except for one time. It was on Christmas Eve, and we had like this. I think it was a satellite burning up. Went over my granny's, and then of course all the adults told us it was Santa Claus. But I've noticed within the last probably two years out here, I have noticed that it'd be the northeast from where I'm at in northeast Oklahoma, looking northeast.
Mm-hmm.
And I've showed it to a lot of people now. I haven't posted it yet, but there's these. They're just like lights, and they will get bright, and then they will dim out to nothing, and then you'll have another one get bright, and they look like they're chasing each other, and they do weird maneuvers and stuff, and they'll do that for maybe an hour and a half. Well, I got to watching them at night. I would go outside and I don't know, like feed the sheep or whatever, and you look over, and you see them. Well, I noticed one night they wasn't there, and I was like, well, maybe it's moved on or whatever. But I've noticed that now they're in the northwest. They've moved. They're doing the same thing, but they're in a different part of the sky. And I've never seen stuff like that in the sky before. This is like some of the first stuff I've ever seen that, it's kind of weird because where it's doing this at is right over the area that I've been investigating.
Okay, interesting.
And yeah, and I'm trying to find, cryptids, but here lately, I don't know what's happened, but we're getting a whole bunch of EVPs and not real nice EVPs.
Gotcha.
They don't like me. I think they like Sarah, but
they like Sarah. They don't like you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
We hear you.
Hello, Sarah.
Hi. My thing isn't working, so I'm like, what's going on? Because I've been talking.
Oh, really? Well, no, this is the first time I've heard you.
Oh, yep. Okay. Well, I'm here.
Mike had you muted.
Sitting in the corner. Now, the story you told that I'm anxious to hear, and it's probably going to scare me and freak me out, is you said you had seen a demon.
Yes.
That's going to be interesting to me because I share the same thing, and I want to see if yours was like mine.
Okay. Yeah. So mine. Let's see. So I was 15 when the Bigfoot thing happened. So this might have been. This would have been probably before that. I probably would have been 12 or 13 whenever this happened. So I'm the eldest of 4 kids. I am the only girl. So my baby brother had just upgraded from a crib to a toddler bed. And the one that we got, or that my mom got, was secondhand. And my baby brother, he'd always been a crier. Lord love him. We used to tease and say he was the fire engine. Um,
Oh Lord.
Poor guy.
if you see this later, Ryan, I love you. Anyway, yeah, once he got that bed, it was even worse. Like he would just scream and scream and scream. He would just refuse to go to bed, and it was just it was quite aggravating for everybody in the house. But we never really put two and two together. And so at that time, my I think we had some friends over. Anyhow, long and the short, we were all playing hide and go seek inside the house. And so I went, and it was dark, so half of the lights were off in the house. And so I went to go hide in my baby brother Ryan's room where his crib bed was at. And when I opened up the door to his room, there's no lights on in here now, by the way. The bed was in the corner, so when I opened the door, the light from the door opened and illuminated his bed. And there is this black human silhouette sitting on the bed,
Wow.
legs stretched out, feet up, arms down by its side. It was like smoke black, but like not translucent, like I couldn't see through it. And what was the scariest thing is that this thing, my brother saw the red eyes on the Bigfoot. This thing had the most piercing red eyes and sorry, every time I tell this one, it's creepy.
Yeah.
And it turned its head and just stared straight into me, and I was just frozen there for a second.
Yeah.
And I could hear the other kids behind me and stuff, and I don't remember what knocked me out of my trance there or whatever. But I remember I went immediately, and I told Mom. I was like, Mama, I told her what I saw and everything. And so she called up one of her fellow church mates, who's a part of their women's power prayer group. And this lady also had she was a prayer warrior if there ever was one. She's laying hands, she's casting stuff out. So she called her over, and she came over that night, and she walked in there, and she said, "Oh, honey," I'm talking to my mom, I don't want to share her name. She said, "Oh, honey," it's like she knew right away. She felt it. I don't know if she saw it or anything, but they went to town. They got out the oil, the water. They went to blessing and casting out and everything. And from that night on, my baby brother slept and never cried.
Yeah.
And we feel so, and I remember my mom, she was just so beside herself. She was just like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. I just took this as, he was already always a crier, that, she felt so bad in that, she didn't discern and see that. So, but
Yeah.
it was what it was, because I guess we'd gotten it second hand, and that thing was attached to that bed. So whenever we brought it in the house, it came with it.
Wow.
Yeah,
That gave me goosebumps because what you said, this is what's crazy.
All right.
Whenever now you're going to love it, it goes together because.
Okay, that's what I said. Let's hear it.
Yeah, and I've told this on the show. So, okay, I was in a room, and we lived in it. We don't live there anymore, but it was an old home we used to live in the country. Also, we're in the country now, but we lived in this home, and we rented it from the coal mines because they didn't want it tore up. A really nice house. My bedroom, Mom, told us, hey, go pick your bedrooms, and of course, my sister ran and picked the one across from their room, and I ended up getting the one down by the front room, and it was weird because I didn't like that room at first. Whenever I would go in there, I didn't like being in there. It was like a a weird feeling.
Mhm.
My dad was an antique collector. My dad loved antiques.
Mhm.
So my bed was a little different than most kids' bed at my age. My bed was an old hospital bed
Oh
that
wow.
so at the foot of it, it had the old crank. You could crank one and raise the head, and crank the
Yeah.
other one and raise the feet. And that was my bed. Well, which I thought it was pretty cool because I could raise
I was
it
like,
up,
yeah, I
play
thought I
games.
think it was kind of cool too, but
But it was back when I was young, and I believed in the tooth fairy, and I had lost a tooth. And I went to bed that night, and I put the tooth under my pillow, and I was laying there, and I had the closet was like kind of like it was a closet in my room, but it was built out into the room, and it had two doors that shut,
Mhm.
and it was kind of beside my bed was like up in that part, and I seen the closet light came on, and the only way to turn the closet light on is it had a pull string on a chain, and so you hear the shh, and the light comes on, and the door opens, and I'm thinking in my mind, it's the tooth fairy. It ain't gonna hurt me, right? So, so, so I'm laying there, and
Oh Lord.
I'm peeking, because I'm peeking, and a lady in a red dress walks out of the closet. She walked over to the side of my bed, stuck her hand under my pillow. She lifted my head. She actually lifted my head. She laid my head back down, and then she walked back into the closet, turned the light out. Well, the next day, I woke up and looked under my pillow, and of course, my tooth is still there. And I'm like, well, that sucks. So I went and told my mom, and she's like, no, no, she probably just forgot. There wasn't nobody in your room. And I was having things at night crawl around in my floor. They wouldn't hurt me, but they were like crawling, And
yeah.
I would run out of there scared to death, tell my mom and dad. And of course, I think they was watching the Honeymooners at night is what they would watch, I think. And they would always tell me, go back to bed. You got school tomorrow. There ain't nothing in there. So I would go back to bed, and it got where it would pull the blanket. I could feel it pull the end of the blanket. So I had my cousin stay all night with me, and he stayed in there with me. And yeah, he had a crying fit. And but the weird thing is later on in life, as I got older, my dad used to build houses, and we was building a house, and the owner of the home's friend had showed up, and it ended up we knew him, and he was living in that old house that we had lived in. And
Mm.
I was in my 20s now, and we're sitting there talking, and we're not talking about nothing scary or anything, talking about houses. And my dad's like, oh yeah, we used to live there. And all of a sudden he goes, yeah, my daughter, she will not sleep in that first bedroom to the left. She says there's a lady in a red dress in there that will not leave her alone. And I just looked at dad and said, told you,
Like I told you.
Yeah, it was really there. But that house, I never felt comfortable in that house. You ever get that feeling when you're in somewhere like you
Oh,
want to run out
absolutely.
there, you just want to
Oh,
run.
absolutely. A lot. Yeah, I've been in places like that. I'm just like, either you get like a good feeling or a bad feeling, or you can turn a corner and like there's like something like, or like one part of the building will be fine, or you walk in and then like something about one particular room is just like I get the heebie-jeebies. I just don't need to stay away from that or something like that. Yeah, I get that. I do that a lot.
We get that
I
whenever
would
we're
say
out there.
do what?
I said we get that whenever we're out there, like
Yeah,
out in the
we've
woods.
had
That
yeah,
happens.
Yeah.
we've
That
done that
heavy
with she
feeling.
investigates.
Yeah.
Sarah's
A lot of
Sarah's my sister. She investigates with me. She goes out on our lives. We do a live every Saturday night, and we go out and we go to different places and investigate. We do live. So
That's
she's my
cool.
bait. That's what I call her. Yeah, she's my bait because I'll always take somebody that you can outrun, but she kind of cheats though because she keeps the car keys.
There you go. Smart
I have
girl.
to. Man, I get scared.
But my demon, I would say that lady was a demon, the one in the red dress. I have no doubt that was a
Probably.
demon. But what I would say was my worst demon that I ever experienced was my aunt had called me one night. I was younger. I was probably 18 or 20. And I went to her house, and she was like, "There's somebody here." And of course, I had my gun. She's like, "Yo, you don't need your gun." And I was like, "Well, where they at?" She's like, "It's in the house. Just come in." So I go in, and she tells me, she's like, "Sit on the couch." And whenever you sit on the couch above her TV over on her wall, her hallway was, if you was walking into the hallway, there was a wall. Then there was a door to the right and a door to the left, which went into a bedroom, and in a bedroom, then there was like two other bedrooms, like made a horseshoe, like through
Okay,
there.
yeah.
Okay, so on the wall was a mirror on straight into the hallway. So we're sitting on the couch, and the door to the left is opened, and then the door to the right is closed. And while we're sitting there, you can see like this shadow come out and then go back from the door, right? Like back and forth. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's the phone book on the wall, you know. So I get up because I don't believe in this stuff then. I'm trying to be tough. I'm young, you know. So I grab the
Right.
phone book and I go put it on the table, and I sit down, and it does it again. I'm like, well, it's something outside, you know. So we shut the blinds and everything, and we sit there, and it does it again. So I get up, and not knowing better, I walk over to the hallway, and I open the door to the right, and I say, "There, if you want to cross, go ahead and cross." And when I go sit down, it did. It was not a monster like everybody says. It was from about the shoulders up. It just looked like a old skinny man with
Mm-hmm.
short hair, nice haircut, kind of, you know, the old. And that's really all it looked like. But it wasn't. You know how a shadow looks. You could tell this was different than a shadow. This was maybe more 3D. Maybe
Yeah. No, I
it
know
had
exactly what you're talking
like more definition to it.
about. Mm-hmm.
And when it went through, it got hard for me to breathe. My ears got really hot. My face got really hot. The room got really heavy to me. And I looked at my aunt, and I was like, "It's hot in here." And she was like, "Yeah, my ears are burning up." And we ended up calling my mom. My mom showed up and then rebuked it from the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
and it left. But that house had a lot of bad things happen in that house. It was like they would touch you in that house. It was a bad place.
Ugh. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. No, I won't even go back to that property. The house is gone, but I don't have no desire to ever go back there.
I can understand why.
That ruined it. That ruined it for me. I was done there. I tried, you know, I tried to be tough, and I tried to stay there, and I tried to stay all night one night with my cousin, and we was laying in the front room, and you try to be tough, you know, you try to be the tough guy, but
Mm-hmm.
we was laying in there, and the kitchen, the chair in the kitchen slid out from the table, and there was a
Ugh.
glass of water on the table because we wouldn't bring our water in the front room because of carpet, and it was sitting on the table, and the chair slides out, and then the water goes across the table like somebody had sat down and slid the water out of the way. I was
Yeah.
like, "Call my mom."
Well,
I
Mama needs
freaked
to be
out.
here right now.
So my mom had to come pick me up in the middle of the night and take me home. It scared me bad. I didn't want no part of that. Uh-uh.
You didn't say
So
call dad, you said call mom, right?
call my mama. I wanted my
Dad say,
mama.
no, you're staying there the night, son. You're gonna stay there.
At least I'm not the only one that says
No,
I'm
I
gonna call my mama.
I would have started walking. I was not staying there. I take my chances on the highway. That was a bad place. So what was your scariest supernatural encounter? Was that your scariest, or have you had worse?
It's bad when you got to sit and think.
Which one?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, which one?
Yeah.
So yeah, that one was pretty. That one's definitely up there. I'd say it's
Yeah,
probably tied at top one or two.
yeah,
And
I'd say.
the other thing, let's see. So yeah, I've been in a house. We were renting like you described when you're talking about the old house and the figure, the old man. Um, Probably about 10 years ago, my husband and I we were renting a house, and it was an old farmhouse up here, and it was the landlord's dad's old house. And he always talked about his dad and everything, and it was kind of neat or kind of creepy at the same time. So there was little handprints on the like here behind me. I got the tongue and groove where they had polyurethaned it, and there was like little kid handprints on it, and that was the landlord's kid handprints. But anyway, I'd always gotten a weird feeling that, there was somebody else there with us, just that feeling like I'm not alone, but it was never malevolent. And I was at home because my hubby was working second shift at the time. So I was by myself. I was in the kitchen, sweeping the floor, cleaning up. And I just like that presence just got so overpoweringly strong. And, out of the corner of my right and in the door frame of the kitchen, there was a farmer standing there because he had the hat and everything. And in that second, I just said like that, and I jumped and kind of screamed, and it dissipated and went away. And I yelled. I started yelling at him. I said, "Don't you do that to me!"
Oh Lord!
As soon as that happened, and the person is standing there, then the oogie boogie feeling went away. It's almost like it pulled up enough energy to manifest and then away. So that's not the scary one. That's just the story that you shared. That was what was in my head. So yeah, the demon one probably is definitely up there as probably some of the scariest thing. And
I couldn't imagine something with red eyes staring at you in a dark room. Yeah, that would be horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, and it froze me. I couldn't move or anything. That was terrifying. And so yeah, I've around that time when I had the Bigfoot experience when I was 15 is when everything really kind of amped up. That's when like I said, it was pre to that, it was the demon thing, then the Bigfoot thing. That was when a lot of the stuff really amped up around the house and the property, at my parents' property, I mean. And I saw another thing that's kind of what I call, I'm guessing it's Bigfoot. It probably was the thing that I actually did see. And that thing was pretty spooky as well. And so we were at my parents' house, and it was me again, all the siblings, the neighbor kids, everybody on the road always came over to our house to play. That's how we did it here in the country. And we had our little fort area there on the side of the road where, we built a makeshift fort and everything. But anyway, so almost similar to the other Bigfoot experience, my brothers and the neighbor kids had just hopped down out of the little fort area and were riding their bicycles. And it was fall, and the leaves had just freshly fell, so everything was super crunchy. And as I could hear, I heard something coming up like really fast, kind of behind or toward us. And so in that quick second, I turned and I looked, and this humanoid bear-looking type thing was probably 15, 20 feet at the most. It was close to me. I turned and look at it. It's laying flat on its stomach, arms stretched out, side to side. I couldn't see its hands because where it was at between the two trees, the trees cut off the hands, so I couldn't see that. But it was laying down, and I always described it as this bearskin rug creature, because you ever see things at a bearskin rug, how it's laying down,
right,
it's down in the mouth open,
right.
And that was what was the freakiest thing. Is like another time, this all happened within just a few seconds. Trying to process what I'm seeing, if I'm actually seeing this. And it's laying there, and where the leaves had freshly fell, the colors and stuff that they were I don't know if it was half phasing out or half not, but from its mid back waist to what would have been its feet where it was laying down, I couldn't see it. It was just blended in completely. All I could really see was shoulders, back, face, and the mouth was open and agape. I don't really remember a nose on this thing. But same thing with others. This one didn't have glowing eyes. This thing had really dark, like you always hear people in Jaws. You know how they're talking about sharks. They're like they're dead eyes, like
Right.
black soulless eyes or whatever. That's how this thing was. Its eyes were just solid black, and I couldn't. Like I said, nothing. But it was real. It was very, very real. And at that same time, my brothers and stuff, it's like, hey Amanda, come on, let's go. We gotta go. Like they were trying to get me to hop down there. We were all gonna go ride our bikes. And so I turned to look at them. And when I turn into that split second, I turn to look at them, I turn and I look back, and that sucker is gone. Just that quick. And what's crazy about this thing is in a lot of all this stuff that I've had happen to me, like many other things, I just kind of filed it into the back of my head because, you're going through high school, you're going through that kind of drama and in life and everything. So, you've got other things to worry about other than the boogies that you see at night and in the woods. So I'd honestly forgot about this for a very long time. And it wasn't until I started working at Expedition Bigfoot the first time when I started working there in 2019, and someone was sharing a story or an experience with me, and I wish that I could remember their story and experience, but this particular one came flooding back to me, and it was like I was reliving it over and over again in my head. I would wake up at night from seeing this thing in my dreams and my sleep. It just it was almost like PTSD kind of flashback thing.
Right.
I really didn't think it had affected me that bad, but yeah, I honestly didn't remember that thing and until that had happened. And yeah, so I don't know what it was. I've had other people in other interviews that I've talked to mention like a gugway, which I haven't looked into yet. I've had, it could be a Bigfoot because, they too can be described as having, a muzzle type, not necessarily, this wasn't canine in the muzzle that it had, and it wasn't ape-like. That's why I describe it more as a bear, because it kind of was short and stubby, but it was a muzzle, but it wasn't human face shaped structure at the same time. So yeah, that was that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a question for you. I know we'll get your opinion on this to see what you think.
No, you're good.
I thought this was interesting. I'm learning new stuff every day. I done a case on my show over the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders, which happened back in '77.
Mm-hmm.
You had local, state, federal officers were there. In their reports, they stated that they saw a shapeshifter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, during my interview of doing all this, I spoke to the shamans up there. This is a heavily native area that they still practice the old beliefs. And I had to get permission to speak to them. They had to make sure, that I was okay, that I had to be Cherokee to talk to them.
That was my next question. I was going to ask which tribe, because I know there's several there in Oklahoma.
Yep, it's Cherokee. And they said that finally they would talk to me, that I was good medicine is what they called me. So I was very, I was privileged to be able to go talk to them. And I was warned when I went there, they say, if you want this interview to end immediately, just say shapeshifter and it's done. You're not allowed to say that. So I was like, okay, we won't say that.
Yeah.
So I made the mistake of saying Dogman.
Mm.
And they started laughing. Kind of like, like I was goofy, and I looked at them and I was like, okay, and they're like, that's a white man's name for it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I was like, so what is it? What did you all call it? And they're like, well, they're all the same. And I said, what do you mean? I said, I don't understand what y'all are talking about. And he's like, well, our people used to trade with them. We used to talk to them. Uh, they know our language. We was able to, talk, trade till they started, taking our women and eating our children. And he went into the whole story. And he said, they're not different things. They're all the same. And I said, yeah, but what, like Bigfoot, I said, people say they look different than, what we white men, I guess, call a dog man. I said, so how could they be the same? And he said, they all come from the spider web. Everything comes from inside, is all connected. He said, look at little dogs. He says, some little dogs have short snouts, some have short tails, some's got long tails, some have long snouts, some's got pug faces. Some dogs are bigger, smaller, different colors. He said, but they're still a dog.
Yeah.
I said, so you're saying they're all, the same thing? And he said, yes. He said, the white man just hasn't figured that out yet.
Huh. That's interesting. I mean, I have similar theories of my own of that. Just like you said, you have all the in different Bigfoot groups or whatever. They have, like type A, type B, type C, different, type structures, and same thing in the dogman camps. But then some of these ones, you're looking at them and, like I said, they might as well be the same. So I have had thoughts that, and I've heard from other people who have said that yes, they are one and the same. So to hear that coming from the elders there, that's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Justification to my my theories there. That's kind of cool.
There was and you'll probably find this interesting. There was a lady that that I interviewed during that investigation. I won't say her name because I don't know if she'd want me to, but when I interviewed her, her dad was in a ceremony to where he was, and I was an investigator. That was my past. He allegedly was transforming into a werewolf. He was a shapeshifter, skinwalker. And while this was happening, his brother showed up, which is the lady I was talking to's dad. And he grabs his dad and tries to pull him out of this circle, because he's against this. This is the forbidden magic, the black magic or whatever. And when he goes to pull his dad out, he says his dad turns and he bites his brother on the arm, and his brother runs off. Well, it was a bad enough bite that his brother had to go to the emergency room. And when he got to the emergency room, the physician asked him, what kind of animal bit you? And he said, it wasn't an animal, it was my brother. And the physician said, no. That's not an animal bite or a human bite. That's an animal bite. So they brought in a veterinarian, and the veterinarian said that it was definitely an animal bite, but they wasn't sure what kind of animal had bitten. So, it was interesting. They don't talk to you as in they're giving you an opinion. I found that out. They speak it. That's how it is.
It's a matter of fact. Exactly.
Yeah. And, he told me, he said, we lived with them. We spoke to them. We traded with them. He said, they're part beast, but they're also part human. He said, we called them cannibals, the shy people. They have their own tribe. He said, these are not dumb animals. He said, they're very intelligent. So it was really interesting talking to them. They had a lot of information.
Yeah, that would be super cool. That would definitely be really cool to get that information from the horse's mouth, as they say.
Yeah, it was. It was really interesting doing that. A lot of weird things. What really interested me in that investigation was it wasn't coming from somebody that had normally had an encounter. This was coming from the FBI, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, the Sheriff's Department. They were documenting this in the reports that they were witnessing these events.
Mm.
So that's what really caught my attention, because most of the time you're not even allowed to document that, because whenever I worked, I was a captain. I
Mhm.
approved all the reports that went across my desk before it went to the court system. And if one of the deputies got called out, or one of our officers got called out, or whatever, from speaking with even other officers, you don't put Bigfoot.
Yeah.
You have to put it's an unknown prowler, because you cannot prove that that was Sasquatch unless you have a body. And you
Mhm.
can't go to court and say that there's something that's there that's not proven to exist. So, that they have their ways of hiding it.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
But what was when was you the most afraid? Have you ever been in a situation with something that you just really thought was going to be bad?
Besides the demon one, I do, yeah, the when
Oh, Lord.
I saw this thing before surprised me they call the animals. Sorry, I don't know why that distracted me. Um so yeah, I mentioned earlier that I saw this creature that it would have been what would people call a dire wolf. From where my parents lived, you could walk over to my grandma's house. This is the same grandma from the other story. And I went down to her house after school. She wasn't there. So had just turned around to walk back home, and she has a big hayfield there at her house, different hayfield from the other one. And as it there's a slight little hill off on the very far corner of it. This giant white wolf came up over the knoll right there and just stopped.
Oh, wow.
It obviously saw me, and I saw it, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I can't run because if I run, it's prey thing or whatever. Nana isn't here to let me into the house. I'm pretty fast at running. I could run up here to the shop, so that's one that really stuck out with me, but that was the one that actually scared me enough that like I might die, because it's like this thing was could get me, just because this thing was so massive. I'm like, this wasn't a dog, it wasn't
Right.
somebody's herding dog, this was a wolf. It looked like, you ever seen the old cartoon from the 90s, Balto, how he's
Yeah.
standing on the cover of the movie there, how he's standing with the chest out and the hair and
Oh,
everything.
yeah. Yeah.
So that was how that thing was standing there. So I made the split second decision. I was like, I'm just going to run. I can't just stand here. So I took off running, and I turn around, and it just stands. It never chases me. It never chased me. It just stayed there, and that didn't do anything. But that one, like I said, that was one of that moment. As soon as I saw it, just there that when you realize your prey kicks in, like that's what I felt when I saw that thing, hop up over that hill. Because other things, I don't know why it felt more real. Some of the others, not real as in physical. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you to myself. um, I'll get the right words out eventually. So yeah, this thing felt very physical. All the other stuff wasn't physical. It was kind of more metaphysical. So this thing was like, it just came over the hill and was fixing to kill me. So that was the one thing I really felt like true fear, besides the demon thing.
So they're down at my granny's where I grew up, and where she had all this stuff happen, and she babysitted me a lot. My mom and dad worked, so I was left there, a lot with her.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandpa had passed away, and we would stay with her a lot overnight, so she wasn't alone. And her dad, my great grandpa, he was full blood Cherokee.
Mm-hmm.
And when we would sit in the front room, and now this had happened to her all of her life. When my mom and them, her kids were young, they went through this too. This never stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And we would be in the front room, sitting in the front room, and I remembered at 8:30 is whenever most of the time it would be there. We knew to be in the house as kids. We didn't live, like the other kids did that got out of school. We knew at nighttime at Granny's house that the TV had to be low. We had to be quiet. We couldn't be running around, tromping around in the house, because it would know where you was at and it would follow you from window to window. So we were like on edge at night, and Granny had hung blankets over the windows so it couldn't see us. But when it would get to the house, you could hear it walking by the windows, and you could hear it like, the breathing. It'd be like, and you could hear it. And we were little, probably 12, 13, and it would come to like where the air conditioner was at, and you could really hear it through that vent. And it would start scratching on the grates. But at the back of the house, it was dark because the yard light in the front didn't reach the back because she had a bunch of elm trees. It was, shade and stuff. So in the back, it would always get to the back of the house, and you would hear the doorknob rattle. It would like it was trying the door. And I mean, it was terrifying. We hated it. I remember, when my mom and dad would go down there and visit, I would always beg them, please leave before dark. I didn't want to be there at dark. It was really bad. My grandma had a stroke, and the kids were taking care of her, taking turns staying with her. One kid would stay 3 nights and the other kid, and I would stay with my mom. And I was laying in her bed one night, and where she would normally sleep, and they had an old water cooler, It's air conditioner. It was in the window, and I was laying there, and you could kind of see out around the cracks of it.
Yeah.
And I'm laying there, and so I see this like shadow covers the light, and I'm like, "There's something there," and it says my mom's name.
Oh, snap!
Yeah, my mom's name. My mom's name was Kay, and it goes Kay, and it starts saying that through the water cooler. I jump up and I run to the front room. And then, of course, the next day we're talking to Granny about it. And she's telling us about one time it stood on the sidewalk and was looking at her through her front door before she had air conditioning. And it was motioning with its fingers for her to come here, saying her name. So, I mean, it would say names. My granny had a bell that she would ring when she needed something at night because she couldn't get up. She was bedridden with her stroke. Yeah. And one night I was staying with my mom. We hear the bell. So we go look at Granny. And Granny's asleep. So we thought Granny rung the bell, fell back asleep. So we go back in, lay down. Bell starts ringing. Go back in there. Granny's asleep. So Mom tells me just stand inside the front room door like we'd left her room and see if she was ringing it. And she didn't ring it, but it rung outside the window. And whenever we looked out the window, whatever it was had climbed up in the tree and was watching us through the window as we was walking back and forth, ringing a bell.
Oh my goodness!
So yeah, it was pretty bad.
You could actually see it even in the dark that it was up in the tree.
Yeah, because we had a yard light out in the circle drive, and the yard light would come down. Through the trees, you had that shaded. I mean, you could see the silhouette of it, and you could see its arms wrapped around the tree, and it was just like looking.
Ugh.
It scared me. I mean, I cried. I told Scott there was times that we cried. All of us little kids.
Yeah.
I mean, we hated it. We did not like it down there. It was, but the weird thing, and your opinion on this, when my granny passed away, my cousin, she still lives there alone by herself. It all left. Not a single thing anymore. Nothing.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. Definitely not the first time I've heard that, and from personal experiences too, from other family members. I mean, yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was every night for all them years, and then whenever Granny passed away, it just stopped. Now, if my mom goes fishing with us, it does bother my mom really bad in the woods. But other than that, she said down there at Granny's old place, she said it's just as peaceful as it can be.
Interesting.
So why do you think it would leave like that? Just everything just stop.
it was attached to her son for sure, in some sort of way, whether it was a blood thing, like if she had like a certain type of blood, or if it was, in the family bloodline, or whether it was a spiritual, what's the word I'm looking for? Not spiritual connection. It's, it was attached to her in the spirit realm. Interesting. So,
So,
was Granny, can I ask a personal question? Was Granny a religious at all?
yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
it, would it pray or anything like that? Would it go away?
Okay. Here's the weird thing. The things outside that was scratching on the house and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
she would rebuke it in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. She would rebuke it.
Mm-hmm.
And the things outside didn't stop. But now, inside of the home, there was things that would happen inside of the home. Like, you would be in the front room, and it would sound like somebody took a bag of beans and would open them up and would pour them. It sounded like they just pour all over the kitchen floor,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you would go in there, and there was nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you would see a shadow in the back room. Granny would pray, she would rebuke it, and it would stop. It was gone.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever was outside, and I have a theory, I don't know if it's whatever was outside, it would not stop. And then I got to digging into it, and the way that I try to do it, it's really hard to investigate cryptids because when I was an investigator, I at least had rules, and I had, like, something concrete to go off of. So what I base most of my investigations off of is I'm a Christian. I base it off of Christianity. I try to go that's my basis, that's my foundation, and then I try to go from there to investigate. So I wonder, and this is just a wonder. I wonder. They say in cases, 25% of people approximately that have a cryptid encounter will have a supernatural or paranormal encounter. So I was wondering if they are, which depends on how you look at it, Nephilim, descendants of the Nephilim, the Iliad, whichever one you want to say, if they're actually those, and then the ones that died in the flood that became, they said, disembodied in the demons, and this is all if.
Yeah.
What if that's true, and you have the more Iliad, which are the abominations, the corrupted DNA, the war of the seeds, from the beginning. What if the ones that are physical in the physical bodies, which would be the ones that were corrupted, what if there's that lineage in the bloodline that the disembodied ones are still connected to them because it's still the same ones? So when you deal with a physical one, sometimes you have that demon there that's connected to them because of the lineage. They're related,
That's definitely a very, very high probability, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, if the demon are, which they are, disembodied spirits, if you're going off of the disembodied Nephilim theory there, what if they can, just like if they would, I'm having such trouble with my words tonight. It's part of my ADD. I have trouble with words sometimes. If they can possess, possess people, why can't, obviously, in Jesus, he casts demons out into the pigs. Can these things not take over other animals and corrupt them and pollute them? Just for example, whatever, say for it, a demon, possess this, wolf-like dog thing or whatever, and it can twist and mold it and turn it and make it into this, what we would call a dog man or whatever. And I just saw a comment there, something about Aleister Crowley. If you dig into that, that's some really not good stuff that can you can that's a rabbit hole to be careful going down.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I
even
definitely agree with you there, Mike. Yeah, they're if like I said, if they're all, it's like you're like, oh hey, there's cousin there. Like I said, that's what my theory is. It may have been with your granny, as maybe that she had something in her blood, something in her seed that is a descendant of some seed somewhere that was attracted to, because in my family, it's passed from generation to generation to generation. This gift of sight and of foresight. And something interesting that I have actually noticed here for myself in the last 10 years or so, and this may be TMI for the gentleman here, but I had endometriosis and ovarian cysts really, really bad. So I had a complete and radical hysterectomy when I was 28 years old. So that would be in a little over 10 years now, showing my age. And because of that, I am now on different type of hormone replacement therapies and a lot of synthetic medications because of that. Since that time period, since then, the amount of paranormal experiences that I have had have diminished by like 99%. I can still go into different homes and things like that, and it's like, this one's still giving me the heebie-jeebies, but I don't get it. Like, I haven't had any, knock on wood, cryptid experiences since then. I've only had one ghost experience since then, and that was actually my own grandpa. He visited me when we were living at my grandma's for a little while. And but yeah, something fairly interesting. So I'm starting to look, coming from a female perspective, if besides the blood and the seed, if you want to call it that, being an aspect of these things that can have different stuff attached to people because of the blood that they carry, hormones, pheromones, that kind of stuff can affect that kind of stuff as well. So that's something that I've started kind of looking into and digging into a little bit myself personally.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yeah, and down there, whenever they was having all that at Granny's, there was 6 girls, 2 boys.
Yeah.
And counting Granny would have been 7 women.
Yeah. And when a lot of the stuff was going on at my mom and dad's house, it was also a time whenever both my mother and my aunt, who we were next door neighbors, were both pregnant at the same time. And yeah, that summer was a very active summer. We had a wildcat, a cougar show up around there. Other things that went bump in the night. It was a very interesting. Well, not the same summer that all the other stuff happened, but yeah, that was an interesting summer for sure when all that happened.
Michael,
Like
you need to tell her.
we did.
You need to tell her about the dog that you had. Talking about being possessed.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a dog, and we lived in a mobile home in a trailer park whenever I had first gotten married.
Mm-hmm.
And well, we had got this dog. It was like a shepherd. It was like one of those, what are they called? The Alaskan dog, pretty
Husky.
little shepherd. Yeah,
like a husky Malamute shepherd mix.
And he was always a little bit weird, but it was like, maybe he's just weird. And he was acting strange. Like, he would walk around the house and he just was like weird. And I was like, there's something wrong with that dog. And that's whenever I had just started working. I was a brand new officer. I was working nights, and I was tired. Anyways, I was off the next day, and I was asleep in the bedroom, and I decided to get up to go get a drink. And we was in the bedroom, and when you come out of the bedroom, you open the door, and there's a hallway, and the washer and dryer is to the right. You walk down the hallway, and then it opened up into the kitchen, and then in front of the kitchen in front of you was a bar, and you could see through the bar into the front room. and then there was another bedroom in the back. Well, I got up, and we had a night light in the front room, and the TV was on. And I thought, man, that's strange. So I was walking down the hallway, and I look, and that stupid dog is standing on its hind legs watching TV.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, I just stood there. I'm like, maybe he's raising up trying to get something off the bar, maybe we left some food on the bar or something, always trying to rationalize. And
yeah, I'm trying to find something to rationalize it. Yeah.
He starts walking around on his hind legs. And that really, it bothered me. I mean, it was scary. So it starts walking back and forth like this in the front room from window to window. And I turned around and went straight back to my bedroom and got my pistol. And I was like, okay, dude.
It's near you. One of us is going down tonight.
So whenever I started walking, I'm going to have to shoot this dog. So I go walking down the hallway. And when you step on the floor, it would kind of creak. So I step on the floor and it goes like, right. And as soon as it done that, the dog dropped all fours and started acting like a dog and ran to me. And I was like, that's weird. So the next day at work, I was talking.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, the next day at work, I was speaking to, we have a minister at work that you can go talk to if you need to or whatever. He was in there drinking coffee with us, and I had mentioned it to him, and he said, well, whenever you go home, just mention Jesus to him. I was like, okay. So I got home from work. He was outside, and we had a little, fenced-in area around the trailer. And I opened the little gate, and I shut the gate, and I'm walking in. And of course, the dog meets me, and I'm like, hey there, Jesus. And he bites me.
Oh.
And I was like,
oh, Lord.
I don't know how to explain the feeling. It was like, I don't know, your heart kind of stops. And I was like, okay. So living beside us was a Mexicans. And he yelled at me and he's like, hey, you okay? And I was like, yeah. He goes, I seen him bite you. And I was like, yeah. He goes, I really like that dog. And he said, we like that dog. He's pretty. So I went in the house.
Oh, Lord.
So that night, that stupid dog, I could hear him walking back and forth in the hallway with our door shut. And it sounded, I mean, I don't know if he was, but it's, probably my imagination too, because I was scared of him. But he was walking on his hind legs, it sounded like, just walking the hallway. And how your mind starts thinking, okay, this thing knows what I am now. It knows that I know what it is. And I'm thinking all that.
You know that I know that you know.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to have to take care of this dude. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? So the next day I was outside, and the Mexican was working on his truck, and he always called me Indian. He's like, hey, Indian. And I looked at him, and he goes, what you going to do with that dog? I said, you want him? He's like, oh, yeah, for free. I was like, you can have him. So I put the leash on him and gave the dog to them. And it was like maybe 2 or 3 days later, I came home from work, and he was like, hey, that dog you gave us? I was like, yeah. He goes, my dad came over and said there was something wrong with that dog. He said he was possessed. I said, really? He said, yeah, man. Whenever you would go to bed at night and we would go to bed, he would sit in our window and just watch your house. Ooh. I said, really? He said, yeah, man, we had to go take care of him. And that was the last I ever heard.
Yeah. No, thank you.
So I don't know if they were having issues. I didn't.
Hey, Mike, you want a burrito? Oh, Lord.
I was just sitting in the window like, I'm coming. I want to come back to you.
Oh, yeah. And it was just like, I mean, the way if you would have seen him, the way he was walking in the front room, it wasn't like he had never done it before, He was comfortable. And then it makes you wonder, the family we got him from, was they into something? And something.
That was what I was about to say. Is like, do you remember any at all where you got him from? Because I have seen, there's dogs that can walk on their hind legs and do stuff like that, or walk more on 2 legs than I do on 4 most of the time. I'm a former veterinary technician and assistant as well, so I've seen some dogs do some crazy things. So I was like, in my mind, I'm trying to play off the rational as you're telling that story. But at the same time, I'm still going, it's like, that's still creepy. No, thank you.
Mike, didn't it growl?
And every time
had a picture? Didn't it growl at a picture of Jesus on the wall or a cross? Like when it would look at it?
That's where we had the photograph that I took. A guy that I worked with, I have my dad, before he passed away, he bought me this huge picture, and it's a picture of Jesus with his arms out, and it's got like cherubs around him. It's probably 5 foot tall by probably 4 foot wide. And Dad built a huge wooden. My dad was a carpenter also, and he built a huge wooden like frame for it and glass and all. It's real pretty. But the picture inside of the actual picture, if you get a magnifying glass, it's the complete New Testament of the Bible.
Oh, that's cool.
It's written from beginning to end. So the picture is actually the Bible. And
that's really
the
cool.
dog, he would growl at it. I mean, he hated it. So one day my friend's like, take a picture of it and bring it and let me see it. I want to see what the picture looks like. So I'm going out the door and I pull my cell phone out, and I take a shot of it on the wall. And I get to work and I'm signing in and everything, signing out the vehicle. And he's like, hey, did you get the picture? I was like, oh, yeah. And I pull it up on my phone and I just slide my phone over to him. He picks my phone up and he throws my phone down. He goes, don't you ever show me that again, dude. And I was like, what? So I grabbed my phone and I looked at it. And when I looked at it in the photograph, because there's glass on the front of the picture, it's either in the picture or it was a reflection of the picture. There was an old man with white hair and a white mustache, and he was frowning.
Ooh,
so
creepy.
Yeah.
Well, things got really bad in that trailer. Whenever I would go to work, my ex would call me having a fit, saying that she was hearing a woman scream in the house, and she was hearing an old man in the house and things like that. Teddy bears were getting taken out of the kids' room, sitting in the front room the next morning. I mean, it got really bad. So we ended up selling the trailer, not to the neighbor, but we did end up selling the trailer. And it was a bad.
Sold the neighbor, the house.
It was a bad deal. We got rid of everything. We auctioned the dog, the kids. Yeah, it was bad. I mean, very uncomfortable. We did find out, however, from the guy that ran the park there, that the man and lady that lived in that house both died in that house, and that's how we ended up buying it so cheap. It's the lady had passed away, and we got it fully furnished. And then I'm thinking, is the bed we've been sleeping in the one she died in?
I laugh because that's happened to me, and I didn't. When my hubby and I first got married, we just had a small full bed, and so we upgraded to a queen mattress, and we had gotten it from his mom, my mother-in-law. Apparently, we didn't know that it was from some family members. Anyway, it was his mother's, and the mom had died on that bed, and we didn't know about it for like 3 years. So,
wow.
Yeah. Nothing ever creepy ever happened, but it was just the fact of it. It's just like,
oh, yeah.
I'm a person, and I don't know why, like the cryptids and stuff, they do scare me when we're out there. People say, how do you not get scared? Well, I do get scared, but I'm used to being alone. Since I was 18, I wore a badge. So, I mean, I'm used to getting calls out by myself, going out by myself, and just being, I mean, people think, oh, yeah, no, we're just as afraid of you as you are. We just do our job. And there's been times I've been out there and, I mean, totally just like last night. Last night was a bad night on our life. I mean, we went out and everything was pretty dead, pretty quiet. We went to a place where a guy said something, talked to his child, and nothing happened. So we ended up going to this other place, and something stepped out. I don't know what it was. I never say what it was, but something stepped out in front of us on the path. It was big. Uh, we followed it to see where it was going last night, and this is all live. And we got it down by the water, and there's a bluff that falls off into this creek, and we got it between the bluff and us. Randy says I almost got ate, and whatever this thing was, it let out the most god awful growl I've ever heard.
Ugh.
And we left. Yeah, it was time to leave.
Yeah, y'all were talking about that whenever I was coming on, and like as you said that, there's theories you hear about in cryptid and maybe more like, vampire, werewolf, witches, or whatever. It's like when you got it to the water is whenever it freaked out and started growling at you. So I wonder if it couldn't cross water, or if there was something about that water that it couldn't go near that caused it to suddenly become so aggressive.
Oh wow, I never thought of that. Yeah, wouldn't you say it got pretty aggressive, Scott?
Oh yeah, you hear it just as plain as day. I mean, yeah, it growls. It's got a wicked growl.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and I'll go find that video and I'll listen to that.
Yeah,
it was time to go. I knew it was time to go at that point. Yeah, but I don't know. My grandma, she lived in the old town before they flooded it, which would have been around, I think, like either the late 1800s or like around 1905. She lived there. Mm-hmm. And she lived to be, I think, 100 or close to 100. And she would tell me that even when and I know where her old home place was at down there. It's not underwater all the time. You can still find it. Mm-hmm. And she said that they also had trouble there back then. So, I mean, even whatever these... Yeah. Yeah, because see, before they flooded it is actually where it came from to my granny's. Because it wasn't flooded when my uncle went down there and had that encounter. That's where he had the encounter. And it followed him from there to my granny's. And then they ended up flooding it.
Interesting. Yeah. Was this the same granny that was having the thing coming up at the trailer there and the scratching, ringing the bell and all that? Or is this a different granny?
Same place. Yeah, same granny.
Yeah, up here in North Georgia, a lot of our lakes are dammed up, and there's like both lakes here in the area I'm in. Have the old towns are still underneath the water, and yeah, there's lots of creepy things that happen because of that, or is attributed to that, I should say.
Oh yeah. My uncle was a mortician back then, and he said that they were having to go down and get bodies that were floating out, that they had missed some of the graves and stuff when they flooded.
Yeah, they did.
Like some of the Indian graves and stuff, they would. Yeah, they would have to go down, he said, and chase bodies down and rebury them. We actually have a cemetery that's dedicated to that. They call it the relocated cemetery.
Oh wow!
But yeah, they had to. Yeah, I'm not going there. I mean, yeah, we went down there the other night, and I think the reason that some of this is paranormal, demonic, is because there is a high level of cult activity in these areas. We found a circle one night while we was out that had the 5-point star made out of sticks, and there was a fire, and yeah, there's a lot of that down in there. So a lot of evil.
Yeah,
there's an island down there that's close to us. It's known for a lot of that activity. Actually, a guy I know went down there and went fishing. He got shot in the back of the head by 22, and they don't even know why or who. So
yikes. It's
pretty bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad down in there. But it's just a lot of...
I wanted to know about the pterodactyl before we get too far in. I want to hear her encounter of the pterodactyl, because I've seen something in the sky, and I yelled at somebody and said, "Come here and look at this," and it was the biggest bird I've ever seen. I mean, it was way beyond anything that I've seen. and it was way up in the sky, but it was gigantic.
Mm-hmm. In yours, do you remember the wings, if it was feathered or not unfeathered?
It looked like it was webbed. It did not look feathered.
Yeah, that's what I remember the most of mine. This one, I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and it was another one of those really quick things. I was playing in what would have been our sandbox or mud pit. It was dirt; it wasn't sand in the backyard, and I just happened to be looking up at the right moment, and what I thought it was a woodpecker because it had a red crown on it, but when it flew over me and then flew over, from one area where the house was sitting, everything else around it was trees except for right where the house is. So there's only that open space there.
Right.
So it was, it wasn't humongous or like really big. It probably would have been the size of like a big hawk. Nothing bigger. It wasn't like a big Thunderbird size thing. Right. Which is why I thought if it was a woodpecker at first, but it had a very long beak, like Petrie from the classic pterodactyl look to it, with a little point cone on the head.
Right.
But the wings were very membranous. It was very easy to tell right away that there was no feathers. It was yellowish, like you could see the sunlight was kind of coming up through it, and it just had one flap, and it was just a glide, and then the quick flap, and it would just glide off.
Yeah, this thing I saw, like I say, it wasn't like what you would call a pterodactyl. They were like 40-foot wingspan. But this was the biggest flying thing I've ever seen. It wasn't a crane. I've seen cranes. Mm-hmm. It was just really big, and the wingspan, the width of the wing, is what really stuck out too. The wings were real wide, not long as much as wide.
Interesting.
It was different. I mean, I wish I had a camera, but I didn't.
Yeah, people ask me that all the time. It's like, where's about a camera? I was like, was you around for the 90s? Do you not remember that? Cameras weren't exactly a thing for kids.
Right. Yeah, we didn't even have phones.
I remember. Yeah, Granny had a party line. I don't know if y'all remember or know.
Oh, yeah.
I remember party line.
I used to get on there and
go in the bedroom. Yeah, we did too. We'd sneak in there and listen to their funny talk.
All of a sudden accidentally hear a breath on the other end. Somebody's listening in.
Yeah.
Like,
or your mom and dad walks in and says, "Are you listening in on that phone?" No.
No, totally not.
Oh, yeah, yes. And you had your own ring too. Everybody had their own ring. Some would ring like real fast in a row, some were long. And I didn't know when I was a kid. I'd just hear the phone ring and I'd answer it, and it'd be like, "Lucille, is that you, Lucille?" I'm like, "No, Lucille don't live here." "Well, I'm trying to call Lucille." Quit answering.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, I think it's interesting too that whenever you talked about what you saw was wearing a hat. And the reason I think that's interesting is because so many people talk about a hat man. And okay, this is one of the weirdest things to me. Where we live now, out on this property, is where whenever I was in elementary school, is where our janitor lived. Mm-hmm. And he was a really nice man. He was a cowboy, wore a black cowboy hat all the time. And you would see him in the hallways and stuff, and he was just very polite. He was a good man. We moved out here. Well, he took his life out here. He shot himself out here. Mm-hmm. And we moved out here, but we're not living in the same home or anything. That house burnt. So my dad built this home, and then I was in my home, which is on the same property. And we had just moved down there, and kids come running up to me having a fit. And I'm like, "What's wrong?" And they're like, "There's a man in the hallway." Ooh. So I run thinking there's a man in the hallway, and there's nothing there. And I start talking to him. I'm like, "What kind of man did you see in the hallway?" And they're little. They're just little fellers at this time. And they go, "It was a man with a hat, and he had a dog with him, and he pointed at us to get out of the hallway." And the first thing I thought of was, man, he always wore a hat and he lived here on the same property. Is that a familiar spirit trying to get in and mess with my kids and mess with me? So I went through the house and rebuked it and everything and never had any trouble. But that was really weird to me.
That is interesting. Yeah. Makes you wonder why he would want to go back up, or if something was trying to pretend to be him or something.
Right.
It makes you wonder sometimes, do they do that to gain your trust? To try to get you to open up to them?
Definitely a possibility. Definitely a possibility.
I'm your friend, not your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because,
wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing.
Well, my cousin's my little cousin, he was in his room, had an imaginary friend. And his imaginary friend was outside the window. And he would sit there at night and talk to his little imaginary friend. And they thought it was just an imaginary friend.
Yeah.
And this is the cool thing was, my cousin does not believe in ghosts or nothing. He didn't believe in none of that. It was a bunch of bull. And he was never afraid of the dark, nothing bothered him. And little cousin would talk and talk and talk and talk until one day when he came in and said that his little friend wanted him to kill mommy. Because mommy wouldn't let him come in the house. So they got to looking into it, and of course my cousin's like, no. So my cousin got up one night and he went to go to the bathroom, and on his way back he saw an old woman sitting in the front room in a rocking chair rocking a baby, smiling at him. So they found out they found out that place they was living in used to actually be a church. They got out of there. Yeah.
Interesting. That's something interesting too, is that how you hear about churches and stuff like that being haunted or having foul spirits in it. Whenever churches, you're supposed to anyways be holy ground or sacred ground or whatever, and then you still have things afterwards to it. I don't know, that's something that's always been in the back of my mind. It's like, that's just interesting or weird.
I've heard a lot of those too. I knew a lady that used to go to church just right down the road here. They closed it, but she was the night cleaner after church. She'd stay and clean up everything. And they had the room where you have the central air and heat that's got the big pipe that goes out the top of the building. She opened it to put the broom and stuff up, she said, and she goes, if I ever saw the devil, she said, I saw him that night. He was standing on top of that machine, she said, with his hands wrapped around it, smiling at me when I opened the door. And she quit. She would not clean that church no more at night.
Ugh.
Man,
but they done exorcisms.
I do not blame her. No, thank you.
Yeah.
And they had done some exorcisms in there, so it makes me wonder.
That's what I say. If it's attached to something somewhere, even though it's been rebuked out, if the church is no longer active, or if they're not having the Holy Spirit as good as they should, if things are coming there that shouldn't be, or is pretending to be of the Lord when it's not. Because I've been in churches too where they've done an exorcism, and they it didn't do anything, but it was like this just almost like shadowy thing that came out of this lady's mouth, and then under the pews, went up and around the altar and out the back door.
Yeah, what do you think about a Ouija board?
Oh, nope. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
I don't want one of those.
That is just asking for trouble, right
I'm
there.
telling you. I know what it's like.
Yeah.
And
thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God, and that is something I will not. Nope.
That thing can bring some.
Yeah, you don't know what doors that thing is going to open.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I had a demon come in my house when I was younger, and it came from the Ouija board, because back then it was a game. It was, like made for you to play, and nobody believed it. But let me tell you, the thing was accurate. On any question we would ask it knew exactly where stuff was that we lost and everything. And something came through there and tormented me. It didn't bother nobody else, but it went after me because I was the youngest, I guess. And it did all kinds of crazy things. And I was just curious because most people are like, oh, I don't mind those Ouija boards. And I'm like, well, if you want a demon in your house, go find a board and bring it in your house. You will have a demon. I promise you.
Yep.
No problem.
We had one at school in our play box.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, at recess, all the little girls, mostly the girls would go for it, and they would get it, and then like the boys would stand around, and the girls would like do their little thing, and they would talk, and it would answer, and we'd all be like, "Oh, ask it this,"
Was that elementary school or middle school or high school?
Yeah, elementary.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, like fourth or fifth grade.
No wonder that dog was walking around the house. Yeah, it's amazing they brought that out as a game for families to play with and stuff, knowing exactly what it could do and what it did.
Mm-hmm.
Deception.
Yeah, the powers that be knew exactly what they were doing, making that a game.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. Scott had one of the worst things happen to him that I've ever heard anybody have happen. He actually seen something levitate, and I've never seen that.
That's after the Ouija board when they were using it. The very first thing, we were playing Scrabble, and we put all the tiles in the sock so we could reach in and grab our tiles when we used it to make a word. And we were sitting there, and I looked up, and in between Mom and Dad, the sock is just floating right behind them, but it's just floating in the air. And I'm like, Mom, Dad. And they said, what? I said, look. And as soon as I said it, it went straight to the ground, but it never made any sound. It just went down and laid on the ground.
Interesting.
And second thing, I was going down the hallway, and something, I don't know, some feeling just told me to look in the bathroom. So I turned my head, and I'm looking in the bathroom. I'm like, well, I'm not looking. And all of a sudden, the towel just lifts up beside the counter in the toilet, and just lifts up, and it's floating in there. And I'm like, okay, no big deal. I mean, I couldn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think I was probably 8 or 9, somewhere in that age. But the last thing it did to me was my bedroom had a half bath, and that thing was in the bathroom, the half bathroom, and I was sleeping. I was getting ready to go to sleep, and I laid down, and we kept all the lights out except for the hallway light, and when everybody's door would be cracked. And I was sitting there just resting, trying to go to sleep, and I heard something breathe in the bathroom, real loud breath. And I'm like, jumped out of the bed, running into Mom and Dad's room. I said, something's breathing in the bathroom. Of course, my dad, son, that's just the pipes. That's all they do. They breathe. When they get wet, they'll make a breathing sound. I said, oh, okay. So I get in my bed, and I lay back down and sitting there and trying to go to sleep. And all of a sudden I heard the breath again, but it was not in the bathroom. It was in between the bathroom and my bed, about halfway. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, it's a pipe. It's a pipe. It's a pipe. And all of a sudden, that thing was right in my face. Now, I couldn't see it because it was almost pitch black, but it was right in my face, and it let out that big exhale, and I flew. I never went back in that room. Never. But, yeah, and I don't know what happened to it. I don't know. Maybe if Mom and Dad believed me and had the house blessed. I can't remember anything other than that. It just never bothered me again. Never saw it, never heard it, and had no more problem. But, yeah, that's why I know how Ouija boards are, yeah.
Did they get rid of it after that, or do you remember it being around after that?
I don't really know what happened to the board. Like I say, everything just, after that time it breathed in my face, I never had a problem. Well, of course, I'm stupid. I moved down in the basement. My dad had built a bedroom in the basement. I said, I'll take that bedroom in the basement. I said, I don't want to be in that room. And I thought,
the basement's better. That's bad.
Well, yeah, as a kid, I'm like, I mean, as an adult, I'm like, why would you want to go in a basement where it's pitch black and dark and nobody else is in there? And, it never dawned on me as a kid, and I never had any problem. Not one problem. So.
Interesting.
I know the basement in the Haunting of Connecticut was not a good place to be. I hate that movie. I rented the not the actual movie, but the documentary, everybody had told me to watch it, and everybody had went to sleep. My wife at the time when I was married, the kids, they had all fell asleep, and I was like, okay, I'll check this out, and I put it in, and it made it all the way to the part to where the mattresses started breathing on their own, and they show the demon coming up the steps, and then my little boy sits straight up in the bed and just starts screaming like a nightmare. He had never done that before. So I took the disc out and threw it out the door. It's out in the pasture somewhere. It's probably bailed up now.
No, you threw it over to the neighbors that took the dog. We know what you did with it.
Yeah, I gave it to the neighbor.
Dog played frisbee with it or something.
Here's a frisbee for the dog.
Yeah. Make sure you watch this every night when you go to bed.
Oh Lord!
But yeah, that movie, it really bothered me. I think it's an evil movie.
Oh, The Exorcist was bad. The original Exorcist was probably one of the worst.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it scared adults. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah, I've never seen it, and I don't want to. But my mom has told me about it. And she said, "Yeah, that is evil." And then you hear all these stories about the stuff that happened behind the scenes, that happened to the people, the actors and the camera crew, and even in like the other like The Exorcist 2, 3, or wherever number they're on now. There's always something really bad that happens.
Yeah, Poltergeist.
Well,
Poltergeist.
People who watch the movie, which is one of the reasons why I don't watch scary movies, is because I don't want anything in that to come. Besides, they just bother me too much anyway. Because probably I don't know if even as a kid I was like, I just knew it was bad or evil or whatever, or it just was too scary for me. And my mom said, "It's because the Jesus in you was you knew you could see the bad stuff in it, and it's."
I'd take that. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. See, I can do okay with like scary movies, like werewolves, vampires, suspenseful movies. I'm okay with, but when it gets into like the demons and the chanting and all that, I won't watch them.
Oh yeah, no.
Because we know almost all that can happen in real life. I mean,
why do you want to watch something that happens in real life?
Right. Because you're going to be sitting in your bed thinking, is this bed going to pick up and levitate and start shaking me?
Right.
Or, what you're watching is going to cause, something to come, and then it's going to start bothering you after because you decided to watch some movie. No, don't tempt it.
Well, yeah. I had another thing where I started watching Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures. I got really into it. I said, that's so neat. I didn't believe in it. I didn't believe they would actually do that. Even though as a kid, I had all that poltergeist, I still didn't believe it at all. And I was like, this was back when they first started. I had VHS tapes, and I'd record it and take it over to my daughter's house, which was across the street. And we would watch them there. After I watch them, then I take it over and watch it with them. And man, I'll tell you what, if you get interested and they know you're interested in it, they're going to start acting on it. The demons that are all over the world, they're going to start coming at you and doing stuff because you've made it known to them that you're interested in it.
Exactly. They're like, ooh, they've taken the bait, and we're going to try to lure them in some more with the bad stuff.
The first time I heard a guy speak in my ear, I was excited. I wasn't scared at all. I was excited. I said, oh my God, these things are real. They can talk to you. And then it started opening doors and shutting doors. It would walk down the hallway with cowboy boots on real hard, sounding walking. Then poor daughter over there, well, they got in her house because we were watching it over there. And they were sitting there watching TV one night, and they had one of those rocking things for an infant. And it was the kind you crank with the hand. It wasn't the plug-in kind. And they were just sitting there watching TV, and all of a sudden that thing started going so fast it started walking. It just started clicking on its own and started walking across the room. And they're like, oh, no, that's not good.
Yeah.
And I said, no. They called me, and I said, yeah. I said, we've got it over here, too. Well, come to find out, there's 4 houses on my little section, and there's 4 houses across the street, and we all have activity. Every one of the houses here. I don't know, why, but there's something that evidently went on in this area, and they're thick here. My neighbors across the street said they'll be watching TV, and they'll literally turn around, and there's a little chair they have there, a little rocking chair, and they'll turn around while they're watching TV, and there'll be a little kid sitting in it watching TV with them. And I said, "What do y'all do?" And they said, "Well, we just let him watch. We just act like it ain't there." And I said, "Shoot, not me. I chased mine with the blood of Christ. I got him out of here,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't play with them no more.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
That's what Granny used to tell us, because my older uncles and stuff on Halloween, we wasn't old enough to go, and they were younger. They were in their 20s, we're just kids. They just had us, and they would all go out and spook hunt, and Granny would always say, if you go out and you look for it, you're going to find it. You're giving it place. Don't give it place.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Amanda, I've kept you 2 hours. Your back's probably hurting as bad as mine.
Yeah.
Well, why does this hurt your back to sit here?
It's like, ugh, I'm not used to sitting this long.
I'm getting old. I mean, she hinted around, I think she was around 38, and I have to add about 10 years to that. So
yeah, I'm 39 now, but
I got to add close to 30 years. So
it only gets worse.
Yeah. Trust me, I was always telling. I was like, I'm too young to be feeling this old.
So, your museum that you work at, what part of Georgia is it in?
It's in North Georgia. It's in Blue Ridge, Georgia. It's close to the Tennessee state line. This portion of the state is has grown to be really touristy. So a lot of people want to come and visit the mountains and experience the beauty of nature. And then, the downtowns have all the shops and boutiques and train rides and everything.
Like a Gatlinburg.
Yeah, it's becoming a mini Gatlinburg.
Right.
And
so are you all close to Chattanooga?
Kind of. We were kind of southeast of Chattanooga.
Okay.
You have to go around the Cohutta Wilderness to get to us. It's not a straight shot to get there.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Because Scott, you're in Kentucky, right?
Right.
He's
I'm in Kentucky.
A lot of good stuff in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And in Oklahoma. I'm starting to meet a lot more good folks in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So
yeah, me and Scott, we're going to try to get together and do some fishing too. We like to fish.
Definitely.
Yeah, I got an uncle, my husband's uncle. He goes to Kentucky for hunting like religiously. He goes there like at least once a month. As soon as he's off, it's some kind of hunting season, he's up in Kentucky hunting.
Hey, tell him to go LBL. He can hunt all he wants with Dogman and Bigfoot and wild boars.
Right? They got everything in Kentucky.
I'm telling you, between the lakes and Daniel Boone National Forest, which is known for a lot of cryptids. Of course, there's large bodies of water, which we know they have to be around, or at least water source. And LBL, when they closed all that land off, I think they did it for them, not for the power companies.
Yep.
I think they gave them a place to stay, what do they call it, Mike, a dry area? That the cryptids, that they were sent to the dry places, Nephilims. So.
Yeah, there was a man I talked to about that, and he was talking about when people go out and you do these investigations and stuff, one of his theories was that, they're already cast out, they already hate us, and they're sent to these dry places, and then what do these humans do? They come down here to where we're kicked out at, and then they start making noises at us and trying to film us, right?
I've always thought that to be interesting because you hear a lot of theories of them making those state parks, national parks, national forests and stuff like that. And that just happens to be, where all these things, cryptids are seen so much. Could it be because of, either they have the perfect habitats, or wearing my tinfoil hat a little bit, they said make it for those dry grounds there. And look, here you have your safe space, and we'll just open it up, and people are dumb enough to go off trail. There's you some fresh meat.
Yeah, go off trail and disappear and never come back.
Exactly, and they can just write it off as they just got lost in the woods. That happens.
Roosevelt wrote about a Bigfoot in his journal that he had seen one, but then immediately he starts making national parks all around because he knew.
Yeah, fun fact: they have an exhibit about the Teddy Roosevelt in the museum.
Oh, really okay.
Cool. It shares the bombing story that he shares,
right?
Not his personal one.
Yeah,
but it's still really fascinating. A lot of people don't realize that you had a president that was as big as somebody as Teddy Roosevelt, and it could be considered what's the word I'm looking for? Credible, because he was such a wilderness man prior to being a politician.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And Daniel Boone, according to his journal, shot one in the eye, right through the eye, and killed it.
Yeah. Yahoos, as they call
them. Yeah. Shoot them yahoos. But yeah.
I like to drink them. They got a good flavor.
Oh, Lord.
Yahoo or Yoo-hoos?
Yeah.
Well, it's according to what state you live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
So if it's Yahoo or Yoo-hoos, so what is it for you? Is it Coke, soda, or pop?
Coke's up here in Kentucky. That's what we call them.
Yeah, it's Coke's here too.
It's called pop here, pretty much. It's a pop.
Soda pop.
Yep, soda pop.
Yeah.
Go get some pop. And then
when I wasn't working at the museum, my husband had gotten to work up in North Dakota in the oil fields up there, and so there was a complete learning curve for this Southern gal on some of the different terminologies up there. It's like, well, you got to go up to the pulp machine. I'm like, the what? Like, oh, I was like, the Coke machine. I'm like, oh no, they have more than Coke. And I'm like, okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, Lord. That's hilarious.
Well, Amanda, I'm going to let you plug everything that you're on so people can find you. That way people can know where to find you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. I'm mainly on TikTok as Amanda the Bigfoot Lady. I also share on Facebook and Instagram. I'm working on getting a lot of my videos from those other platforms up onto like YouTube Shorts and stuff. So the best place for people to find me is on TikTok, or you can just email me directly at amandathebigfoot@gmail.com. No spaces, dashes, or dots there. And yeah, my name is the same across all media platforms, Amanda the Bigfoot Lady. So yeah, if you got anything interesting you want to share, or if you just want to ask me any questions, reach out to me. I'm an open book.
Sounds good.
I know we really enjoyed having you. I hope to have you back too.
Yeah, I'd love to come back on. It sounds like we guys could talk for a long time.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Sarah, she wore my ears out.
Yeah, I know. She's been talking so much.
Well, when you're just a blue circle with an S, I mean, you can't really do too much.
And she's super Sarah with her S.
Yeah. At least she didn't start barking.
Oh Lord, no! That was my dog that barked the last time.
Hey, Sarah, how did you feel about that growl last night?
I didn't like that growl. I told him way before that we should get out of there because
it didn't sound like an animal at all to me. It sounded demonic growl. It was slobbery sounding. It was weird.
Yeah, and like Mike was saying, the only place it could go, if it was, an animal or something, was down in the water.
Right.
And it just didn't want us there.
Yeah. And
that was a get back, don't come any closer growl. Kind of like whenever we was at the bridge.
Right. Yeah, I remember that bridge when it growled too, underneath that bridge.
Yep.
Yeah, we could actually see its eye shine at the bridge though. That was pretty intense. we could see its eye shining from our lights, and it was growling at us, and you could see it peeking and like going lower and lower into the grass, peeking at us. And
yeah,
then
Amanda, that video that we're talking about, the growl last night, was filmed live last night. So it'll be the one that was from, what was the date on it? The 22nd?
Yeah, it'd be 23rd.
23rd.
23rd. Yeah.
Cool. I'll definitely look that up for sure.
It's interesting. It's at the very towards the end of it, but there's a lot of stuff happening at the very end. You can see the weeds moving. You can hear the things moving around them, trying to circle around them. It got pretty intense.
We would have probably actually walked right up on top of it if I hadn't have been shining that flashlight and caught its eye. We would have probably stepped right on it.
Oh yeah, and then it would have attacked, or it would have to take a cold bath.
It just laid down. That's what was weird. It just laid down. It's like it just went flat.
That's what I was going to tell her, is that she was talking about that creature that was laying on its belly and had its arms spread out. I mean, the Bigfoots, they can crawl, do some kind of crawl.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how they can do it. They just have to have a lot of strength in their arms and their toes or something to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard that. One of the eye shines I saw last night was real low to the ground. And the eyes were too big and too shiny to be a possum or anything like that. They were, very large, reflective looking eyes.
Yeah, I got it on the IR.
Okay. Yeah. Take a chance and look at that.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Yeah, that spider crawl stuff that they refer to it as or whatever. Yeah, that's
creepy.
Because they already have different structures, body structure, even though it's humanoid, different body structures than we do, to be able to way their feet move and everything, but to be able to support themselves like that.
Yeah, you can't have a beer gut and do a belly crawl.
Yeah. There's a reason why they say most of them are pretty jacked. Like, they're very muscular and everything.
Yeah.
I would rather it run at me as crawl at me.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I'm the same way. I don't like anything that crawls at me weirdly. Nope.
Crawling at me, I have an issue with that. That's a lot worse than running at me.
Where did they do the watermelon crawl at? Isn't that in Georgia? Do the watermelon crawl?
I don't know.
I can't remember if that was it probably is in water here in Georgia, because they do grow watermelons in South Georgia.
Okay.
When I started thinking about the song, I was like, what artist was that? And then where did that come from?
That's what I started thinking too. I was like, who's doing that?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I have OCD too, so when my ADD and OCD kick in, it gets real fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got every other thing that you all don't have, so
we got it covered. That's why we're abnormal.
We gotta have somebody who's normal in the group.
Well, if they are, they're not allowed in it. You got to be abnormal to be here. I'm telling you. Lord.
Well, Amanda, I'm going to let you run. Thank you so very much for coming on. We really appreciate having you, and
thank you.
You're good to have, and we'd love to have you again.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you for being on.
Oh yes. Yeah, maybe I can get to see you next time, Sarah. I'm teasing
you. Yeah, my cam will not come on. I've been trying. I've been sitting here poking it, and it just gives me an X.
I understand. It's all right. We gotta love technology sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Great talking to you folks. Yeah. So let's all keep in touch.
All right.
We will. Thank you very much. You have a good night.
You too, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Happy
Thanksgiving. That was a great interview, guys. I really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did too.
A lot of it. Yeah, we could just keep talking to her, but I felt sorry for her. We've kept her here for over 2 hours. I mean, But when you get people that have that much knowledge, and that many encounters and stuff, you can just keep going on and on with them because they
Oh,
have
yeah.
so much to offer, and she has a lot to offer. She really does.
Yeah, it could last another 2 hours. Easily.
Oh yeah. And of course, if we could get Sarah to shut up, that would be the.
I just like listening to her just because of the stuff that she had to say, like from a girl's point of view.
Yeah, I've seen her on other podcasts. I thought I had seen her on Small Town Monsters. There's another girl there that deals with them, but looks a little similar. But I remember seeing her in podcasts before and interviews and stuff. So
Right.
she's pretty knowledgeable.
Yeah, I went through and watched a bunch of her TikToks today. That's actually how I found her, was on TikTok. She came across my TikTok feed, and I went in and watched a lot of her TikToks. She's got a lot of information, a lot of good information. And Sarah, you never know about her. If we ever, she's always going to be late,
I have had so much trouble with these links, and now my camera won't come on, so I don't know.
Guess what you're getting for Christmas?
A
New
new
phone.
computer? Hey, I'm good with the new phone. Mine's broke.
Oh, are you on a laptop or a computer?
Either one, I'm not picky.
That's what Chris is supposed to get her right there.
All right.
Well, guys,
Yeah.
I'm going to let y'all have the last word, Scott, Sarah, and then I'll walk us out of here.
Okay, I'll start. Want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you all for your support for Hunter, and everybody have a blessed Thanksgiving. Over.
All right. And yes, Lisa Ann, fashionably late. That's right. I just thank you guys so much for being here and talking with us. We greatly appreciate it. Even our silent watchers, y'all help the channel out. Even if you don't come into the chat and talk, we appreciate you sitting there and watching. I just hope that everybody has a happy and blessed Thanksgiving coming up. Spend it with your family. Make the memories with all of your loved ones. And we love each and every one of you, and thank you for your continued support. Over.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody also for your continued support, and supporting Hunter, number one and foremost. He is the number one thing. A lot of you all came forward, and a lot of you all are still coming forward. We are blessed to have the friends that we have. We are blessed at the people that came forward that have now seen the truth, that are now standing with us, that have given us things that is going to be very, very beneficial in proving these lies. And it's going to show what happened, and what happened was a terrible, terrible thing. It was an evil thing. And now that we have made new friends with people across the board, we now have the things that we need to move forward. And so I want to say a special thank you to you guys that's done that's gave us stuff this week. God bless you guys. You're angels in disguise for what you've given us. I would also like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. If you love somebody, love them as hard as you can, because you never know, next year you may have another empty chair at your table. So let little arguments go, let fights go, learn to forgive and love each other, and be thankful to have one and each other. Your friends, everybody. Our life is but a vapor, guys, in this world, and it goes by fast.
Yes, it does.
Tomorrow we're gonna go, and we've lost a family member, and tomorrow's gonna be a hard day for everybody. And just let everybody know how much you love them. It's very important. And I love my family to death, and I want to go be with my family tomorrow. And just a great bunch of people, love them to death. And I pray for my cousin. I love him so very much. And it's just it's a bad time of year. It's never a good time, but it's an even worse time of year to have to do this. But guys, we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Until then, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner. And we'll see you on the next one. God bless, guys.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.